things involved. So we try to be fair, stay in the market, and we had a real tough time after COVID because people weren't doing fundraisers, they didn't have volunteers, they didn't have the money to do it, and we are finally, after 2 hard years of working, getting people to come back. And we've got some of the people we had before COVID, and we've got 2 really good ongoing rentals. The Evanston Symphony Orchestra rehearses here on Tuesdays, and then we have a dance group from Wilmette called Skunk Works, and they have their rehearsals and performances here, and that's a healthy rental as well. So I'm trying to teach all of these things to Suzanne as she takes on the rental program, and I'm confident that she will do a good job and continue to grow the program. Thank you.
I'm somewhat concerned about the change in staffing once Sandra leaves. It seems that we're asking an awful lot, especially of our senior minister.
Excuse me, I'm going to interrupt you because these are questions for the budget, and so those comments would be out of order. If you have a question specifically about the budget,
It
then
probably is. Okay, fine.
okay. I mean, we do have a time concern, and I'm sure if there's issue or questions about staffing, please feel free to talk with Reverend Eileen about how that transition. She has a transition plan. She's been sharing it with the board for the last year, and I'm sure she'd be happy to talk with you about that. Any other questions about the motion on the floor, which is to approve the 2024-25 operating budget? Then I think we're ready to vote. This is a majority vote, so I will ask all those in favor, please raise your green cards. Oh, sorry. Please. Thank you. Okay, I think you can. Okay. I think Sandra, Reverend Eileen, Reverend Susan are tallying along with the online votes. And you're going to have to use a microphone because I can't hear you up here. Sorry, unless you want to really shout.
The in-house vote is 105.
And Adam will tell you the online as soon as.
Okay.
There's, online, there's 31 yes and 2 abstain.
Okay. So it looks like it's 136 affirmative, so that passes. It's a majority. Thank you all. Sorry, I'm just trying to make sure I know what's going on here.
There are 10 more people online than there were when the meeting started.
Thank you. You read my mind. I wondered how we got from 118 members present at the meeting to 136 people voting. No, this is Evanston. Come on, not Chicago. Okay, thank you, and I apologize. I did forget to call for a second, but I hope you'll forgive me for that one.
Okay, Carla, there are actually 12 more.
12 more?
Online.
So we have 118 plus 12 for 230, or 130? 118 plus 12.
Some people online have multiple people voting with.
Okay,
the
well,
participants.
so what I really need some help with is I need to know exactly the total number of members attending. So if there's someone online and they're doing multiples, we need to make sure we know that number. So I'm going to let the staff folk help figure that out, and I think we can move on to presenting the next agenda item, which is the election of new congregational leaders. We approach this part of the agenda with deep gratitude to our nominating committee and to all those who are stepping up to help guide our congregation. Thank you so much. First, we will consider candidates for the Board of Trustees. So here are your candidates. Oh, sorry, I think I'm supposed to be doing this. Oh, sorry. Violated my own rules. Oh, I'm going the wrong way. There we go. Okay. Okay, not to give you visual whiplash, I'm going to jump ahead one. Okay, so here are the candidates. Kara Beskin for a 3-year term, Peggy Bocart for a 3-year term, and Sally Parsons for a 3-year term. And, come on. What? Thank you for your patience. And Wa Vasket for a 2-year term, and Allison Hunter for a 1-year term. So, I need a motion to accept the slate of candidates. Thank you, Harry, and this time a second. Thank you, Linda. Are there any questions or comments on the slate for Board of Trustees? Yes, you're voting for the Board of Trustees slate, which would be the five folks. Yep, the 5 names I just read. Do you want me to read them again? It's Kara Beskin, Peggy Bocart, Sally Parsons, Wa Vascott, and Allison Hunter. And we've had a second, so please start the polling online, Adam, and those in the room can vote, raising your cards. You don't report to me, Lee. Would you please go back there, because your number alone is not going to work. I need the total, but thank you. I can't get this. Oh, there we go. I think we're going to have to use some of that bequest for a new, a new remote. Okay, I think, are the counters completed? You can lower your hands, thank you. So while we are tallying those up, just to revisit quickly the information about the funding and bequest, we won't have the final budget for this year all wrapped up, our expenses and everything, till June 30th, the end of our year. So there's always a little bit of a kind of a gap between what we're able to present to you today and that final bit of how we did for the year. So usually what happens then is the board has to meet and decide if there's something that's happened, we account for that. So the board will be looking at not only how did we do ending the year, but then also what are the ideas and suggestions for any other use of financial windfalls that we may have received. So that'll be coming, and you'll hear more about that, and it's a wonderful thing.
Carla, the vote is 128 in favor.
Great, thank you. So that motion passes. Thank you all very much. We have a budget. Sorry, we have a budget, but we also have board members, which from my perspective is actually more important. So moving along, We are going to now vote on the slate for the endowment trustees. There we go. Thank you. All the cueing you can give me helps, so thanks. So voting for the endowment trustees, the candidates are Alexa Avery for a 3-year term, Shirley Adams for a 1-year term, and Lisa Solomon for a 2-year term. I'll take a motion to accept the slate of candidates for the endowment trustees. So moved. Is it Neil? Yeah, thank you, Neil. And a second? Okay. Right here in the front. Sally, yes. If there are no questions or comments, we will now vote on the slate for endowment trustees.
Carla, our quorum total right now is 134.
Thank you. I think we can hopefully lower those. And while we're waiting for the results, I'll see if I can get this darn thing to work for me. Yeah, come on, Joe.
Sorry, just to clarify, the clicker, if I click on Zoom, the clicker stops working, so I have to
Got it.
switch between.
Okay then, you'll let me know.
You should be able to right now.
Okay. There we go. Okay.
Carla, the vote is 128 yes, 2 abstentions.
Great, thank you. And the last slate of candidates is for the nominating committee. Candidates for the nominating committee are Joyce Lofstrom for 1 year, Cheryl Mounts for 1 year, Rochelle Brooks for 2 years, Sydney Francolino for 2 years, and Jeannie Rhodes for 2 years. Is there a motion to accept the slate of candidates for the nominating committee? Thank you, Will. Is there a second? Thank you, Harry. You're right in front, so I keep seeing you first. So we will now vote. We can start the polling, and all those in favor of the slate, please raise your voting cards. You can put your hands down, thanks.
$130 yes with 3 abstentions.
Very good. Motion passes. We have a nominating committee. Again, I'd like to reiterate my thanks for everyone who is giving their time and talents to be part of the church leadership.
Carla, just a reminder that for in-person, you need to be asking for and against and abstentions.
Yes.
So folks can all provide that, so.
Great, thank you. I forgot about that, and I wasn't following my script. Oh, who's going off the board? As it turns out, me. As a result of some very strange kind of pandemic machinations with terms and everything, I'm really the only person leaving. Allie and Wah were filling in terms, and they were both eligible to run again for a full term, and I'm so grateful that Allie wasn't actually running. She was already filling a full term, but she agreed to stay on. So, but anyways, that's why it turns out that I'm the only person that will be departing. So, I would like to ask Reverend Eileen. Well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I hope you still feel that way in another hour when we're still here. I'm going to ask Reverend Eileen to make a few comments. The State of the Congregation reports were provided to you, and I know it doesn't sound like a lot of fun, but I highly recommend reading it. I even learned some stuff that I didn't know in there. And when you look around and read that report and realize what amazing work this group of people are doing, it's truly awesome and inspiring.
Basically what I was going to say, so good job. Yeah, it's a monster of a document, but if you can even just skim it just to see how much we do, how much we're engaged. I would say the state of this congregation is strong. We are thriving, we are engaged, we are living into our values and our commitments to one another, and I'm super proud to be serving you as your senior minister. A few highlights just that you'll all remember and appreciate that we completed our capital campaign this year, including the lovely chairs that you're sitting on. Yay! We had a really successful and engaging pledge drive process with some generosity conversations that many of you participated in, and been hearing lots of comments that people really enjoyed that process. More to come in how we steward the financial health of the congregation. So much social justice work, the vote, thousands of postcards sent out to neighboring states, soup kitchens returned to the building. We hosted the overnight shelter for 3 weeks, as we've done for many years and will continue to do. We brought back empty bowls again and raised money for our community partners, and over $11,000 in aid to Gaza, which many of you participated in and championed. So I'm so grateful for all of that work and so much more that I just don't even have time to name. We had a successful and awesome auction with group events that are continuing to build connection and community. So if you read in the newsletter, there's an opening in a auction event. Jump on in. They're lots of fun. I've gone to lots of them this year. And our rummage sale was so wonderful. It demonstrated the amount of humility and willingness to learn and engage and grow, and not to run away from challenges or conflicts, but to be better together. I'm just really so proud of us as a community for the way that we've worked through and made this year's sale, I think, better than ever. So thank you for that. Adam, can you put up on the screen the slide I wanted to introduce our intern. Did you get that in there? Okay, there she is. Emma Farrell is a Meadville student. Emma uses she, they pronouns interchangeably, and they're a wonderful human being. I've met with them several times. Reverend Susan and I met with them this last week, and they'll be starting in August, and she will present a fuller greeting to you in August, but I'm very excited to be able to work with her and for you to get to know Emma. So yay! Yay for interns. And I wanted to clarify that in Tom's report, we did ask endowment and thank you endowment for the $12,000 to be able to pay Emma for the first year. The second year will be covered because we are building into this year's budget and next year's budget the amount to get to the second $12,000 that we will pay her. Just so you know that we're not stiffing her the next year.
Eileen?
Yeah.
I don't think it's anywhere, but I'm taking a sabbatical next year.
Oh, thank you
That
for,
maybe
thank
we
you.
should say.
Yes, good, thank you. It is good to say that early and often, that Reverend Susan will be taking a sabbatical December through February, is that right?
December 10 through March 10.
December 10th through March 10. We are going to miss you very much. I'm going to miss you very much. We are all going to miss you very much. And we're so glad that you're taking that time because you deserve it very much. So we will carry on. Thanks for bringing that up. Just finally, a thank you to the staff. We have the best staff in the whole world. I just am so grateful and happy to work with all of them. And I know we're going to celebrate Sandra in next week, but just from the bottom of my heart, you have been a treasure and a dedicated, loving, wise, compassionate friend to this congregation for your 22 years. And we are all, thank you. This is a better place because you have been a part of it. And you already beat me to the punch on thanking Carla, but I was just going to say you've been the best board president. I don't want to say that. Like, take that back. Take it back. Rewind. Because y'all are great. You know, whoever's in this room that's been a board president, you're all great too. But Carla, you've been 2 years, and that's been pretty great. So I've just really enjoyed working with you. So thank you. And before we move into our discussion on the vote for the ceasefire resolution, I just wanted to reiterate my thanks to the team that has worked so hard to not only draft the resolution and redraft it, but also coordinated the fundraising efforts so that we could send humanitarian aid to Gaza. Gail Smith, Martha Holman, Sarah Vanderwicken, Kristen White, Kristen Lems, Michael Skilton, Steve Saracaco, Joe Romeo, Tom Tickner, Michelle Novak, Mary Beth Roth, and Mary Dudek. Did I say everybody? Great. Okay. And I want to encourage us all, again, like I said this morning, that regardless of our different opinions and the specific words that we hold or the positions that we've landed on, let's remember our shared humanity, remember that we are each good and our hearts are in a good place, and we all want peace and justice in this world. Whatever decision that we come to, let our process be covenantal, and let us have the courage to speak what is true, and let us have compassion as we hold each other's dignity at the center. Thank you.
Okay, so before we start the statement of advocacy, which is discussion, which is the ceasefire resolution, and I'm going to reiterate a few things, but if I could have the folks who are going to provide an intro, who are going to make the motion, whatever, come up and get ready at the microphones, that would help us time-wise. So just again to reiterate that The statement of advocacy is something that is outlined in our bylaws, and it does require a 2/3 vote of members attending the meeting. And so we have had a confirmation that, if I heard Reverend Susan correctly, 134?
Yes.
Thank you. So we will need a 2/3 affirmative of that number when we vote to pass the resolution. So what I'd like to do now is recognize Kylie Corey to introduce, with some remarks, to introduce the resolution.
No. That one is? Hello, my name is Kylie Corey, and I use she, her pronouns. In late April, when I was asked to introduce the Israel-Gaza ceasefire resolution on behalf of the working group, I enthusiastically agreed. Before I read the working group's introduction to the resolution, I want to personally thank the working group for inviting me to introduce this crucial and timely statement of congregational resolve to do our part in working for peace. We bring you a resolution that has been discussed for over 2 months at 4 town hall meetings, 2 Zoom meetings hosted by the board, and at the table in the back of the sanctuary. It now incorporates much of the good feedback we received in those congregational conversations, and thank you all for your thoughtful input. It is now the work of the whole, and we feel strongly that approving this resolution and sharing it in public is what we are called to do by our UU principles, values, and mission. Justice is what love looks like in public. This resolution speaks out of our love, compassion, and respect for all beings. We ask for a ceasefire between Hamas and Israel, and for an end to anti-Semitism and Islamophobia here at home. We are being asked by our Jewish and Palestinian friends working for peace, by other faith organizations, and by the Unitarian Universalist Association to urge an Israel-Gaza ceasefire. Please vote yes on this important resolution.
And to present the motion, including the resolution, Mary Beth Roth.
The UCE Israel-Gaza ceasefire resolution. We, the members of the Unitarian Church of Evanston, in accordance with the 8 principles of Unitarian Universalism, respect the inherent worth and dignity of each person. We affirm the principles of justice, equity, and compassion in human relations and our interconnectedness. With this resolution, we add our voices to those of many faith organizations speaking out for peace and safety. We urge U.S. federal, state, and municipal officials to call upon Israel and Hamas to enact an immediate, lasting, bilateral ceasefire, enable humanitarian aid to enter Gaza in sufficient quantities to meet the scale of need, unconditionally release all hostages held by Hamas and detainees held without charges by the Israeli government, and return human remains. We call upon U.S. federal officials, including the President, senators, and representatives, to vote no on providing more military funding and weapons for this war. Pressure all sides of the conflict to address the root causes of the violence and work towards a future in which all Israelis and Palestinians can live in peace and equality with security and human rights protected for all. We unequivocally and equally condemn the deadly attacks and sexual violence perpetrated on innocent Israeli civilians by Hamas on October 7th, 2023. as well as the decades of disproportionate death, detention, and displacement of innocent Palestinian civilians by the Israeli government. The leaders of both Israel and Hamas have engaged in war crimes against innocent civilians who have endured decades of trauma. Continued escalation of this violence will only result in more death, destruction, and the absence of safety and security for all parties to the conflict. We denounce the rising tide of anti-Semitism and Islamophobia in our country and around the globe. We pledge to confront and disrupt it when we encounter it, and ask our elected officials to do the same. The magnitude of this crisis continues to grow. The Israeli hostages have yet to be released. A grossly disproportionate number of Palestinians have been killed, injured, and gone missing. An overwhelming amount of civilian infrastructure in Gaza has been destroyed by the Israeli military. The Israeli government continues to block access to sufficient food and clean water, and the collapse of medical services in Gaza is catastrophic. Over 1 million Gazans face starvation, and many people, mostly children, have already died from dehydration and malnutrition. We urge all communities to demand a permanent, total ceasefire to address the urgent humanitarian crisis in Gaza, so that the long process of finding a permanent and just political solution can begin anew.
So, is someone going to read the motion? Mary, you're reading the motion, yes? Please.
This is a motion to adopt the resolution. I move that the the Unitarian Church of Evanston approve the Israeli-Gaza ceasefire resolution to be sent to President Biden, our elected state and federal officials, Mayor Biss, and the Evanston City Council, and as a letter for publication to various news outlets, including the Evanston Roundtable and the Israeli newspaper Haaretz.
Is there a second to the motion?
There is a second.
Thank you. I got one.
I move to offer a friendly amendment to the motion to approve to remove the words "and to the Israeli newspaper Haaretz." This was at the suggestion of a congregant at one of our Board of Trustees meetings, and we concurred to not send to foreign press.
Is there a second to the
I second.
amendment? Thank you, Tom. Is there any debate or discussion on the amendment to the motion, the deletion of the reference? If you have something to say, please. If you're speaking, is that microphone working? Kristen?
Just curious if there can be an explanation, no necessary objection to the amendment, but just curious for an explanation as to why the amendment. Simply a statement that someone suggested it is rather vague, and wondering what the reasoning was.
Is this operating?
Yeah.
I think it was merely the fact that it was the only recipient on the list that was not the U.S., and it just seemed like we shouldn't overextend ourselves. That was it.
Any other question or debate on the amendment to the motion to delete the reference to the Israeli paper, which would be as you see it now? Say your name, please.
Oh, Alexa Bezjan Avery. I just know a lot of American Jews read that magazine, and magazine newspaper, so why are we excluding that? I mean, it's nominally international, but it's strongly national. That's my
So are
comment.
you
So I
speaking,
just don't understand.
are you speaking in favor or against amending it to delete the
I
reference?
just don't understand why we need to delete it if it is something that is read a lot in the United States. So that's my comment.
Any other questions or debate about that?
So can I explain? So part of the objection to that particular publication is that's a fairly liberal publication, and the objection was because we weren't also going to send it to the more conservative or the middle of the road. So why send any at all if you're not going to?
Thanks, Steve. Any other questions? If you do, please come on up to the microphone and please mention your name.
I'm Gay Riceboro, and I write for the Round Table, but I think we should also send it to Evanston Now and Evanston Patch.
So right now we're just dealing with deleting this. So I think what we could say is that it says various news outlets, and maybe there could be some additional discussion about those.
I believe the proper order of things, you have a motion on the floor, is, I believe would be either to
Yes.
I believe I hear a proposed amendment to, another
To the amendment.
The
Well-
amendment, that is the amendment would be to delete the reference to Haaretz and to add the additional Evanston news outlets would be the appropriate thing. That is, and I will move.
Thank you.
I make a motion that the amendment be changed to delete Haaretz and to add the Evanston Round Table and the two other papers.
So can I ask the maker of the motion, would it be all right if we accommodate that?
As a second motion, absolutely.
No, okay, yeah, fine.
If you're changing the thing,
I
you need
understand.
someone to do it. That's all.
I understand that you want to amend the amendment.
Either to pass the amendment and then do another amendment would be another way.
So we would need the language that specifically, Gay, you wanted to suggest for the other news outlets if we want to make that amendment. First of all, I need a second on the amendment to the amendment. Okay, we got a second back there. So we are now amending the amendment to delete the reference to Haaretz and to add, I'll need Evanston Now.
And Evanston Patch.
Evanston Now and Evanston Patch. So the motion on the floor is to amend. Are you making an amendment to the amendment to amend? It's open for debate, actually.
This is getting very complicated, and I don't really think the wording has to change because there's the additional news outlets wording at the end. But we are not just Evanstonians, and I don't know how much difference it would make, but I think this should also go to the Tribune and Sun-Times and other media within Chicago. I don't think we really need a change of wording for that.
So you're suggesting that we don't amend, that we revise the amendment. Okay, so I'm going to make this simple, okay? Because I think this is getting a little into the weeds, and I'm just going to suggest, by a yes vote, are you comfortable with an amendment that removes Haaretz Israeli newspaper and adds the addition of other Chicagoland newspapers and Evanston papers as appropriate?
Can I make a point of clarification? So everybody who was listed as drafting this that if you have a news organization that you would like this sent to, that you should send the name of that news outlet to one of the folks that were listed, and we can put their names back up, and that they are open to that, right? And so because the motion already says various news outlets, you just need to provide the ones that are close to your heart and wherever you live to one of those people.
So I think we'll just go back to the... Okay, since I started to place a motion before you as a suggestion, I'm going to just proceed with that. Thank you for that information, Reverend Susan. What I want to be clear to everyone here is that when you vote yes or no for the main motion, for the resolution, that you are also voting for distribution of the statement. And if you're fine that it go everywhere and anywhere, that's fine that we're not working out the particulars. If you have any concern about that, then you might want to express that. So where we are, we have the main motion, we have an amendment to delete distribution to Haaretz, and we add a sub-amendment, which I'm going to roll into the main amendment, that basically says, and wherever the language went, about other media in the Chicago, Evanston area as recommended by the working group. Is that okay? Okay, so may we now, and this is just a majority on the amendment, vote on amending the main motion as we just all came to understand it, which is to delete reference to one newspaper and extend the range of distribution to other media outlets in the Chicago and Evanston area as recommended by the working group. I'm not going to do the music. Okay. Do 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 do
A point of clarification, I believe it should be various news outlets in the Chicago area, including this Evanston.
Yes, unfortunately we aren't able to edit the slides, but the secretary is capturing that here.
No problem, just want to ensure that.
Yeah, thank you for the point of clarification. Okay, I think we've counted. We're just waiting to get our tally on the vote. And thank you for your patience. And to preview where we're going next, so we've now made an amendment. We will go back to the original main motion as amended. And I apologize the language on the screen, but I think you all understand now what we're doing, right, with the distribution. And we will begin debate. We have 2 microphones. If you would line up, be related to being in favor of the motion on the east microphone and against the motion on the west microphone. And then we will begin debate. Yes, Susan, thank you.
On the motion, it's 120 approved and 2 abstentions.
Thank you very much. So the motion has been amended, and we are ready to begin debate. Thank you.
But again, Carla, I don't think you asked the room for against and abstentions. Those are coming from online, so just a reminder when we get to the vote.
Yeah, that's true for amendments. I apologize. As it relates to the final vote for the resolution, abstentions are not counted. So if you want to, we'll call for those, but I just wanted to tell you that. Anyway, okay. So we are now entertaining debate on the main motion, and the floor recognizes Kristen Lems.
Thank you. I stand before you with a long history in this church as a Unitarian teen who saw Martin Luther King speak in this room right over here. And as one who has sung, marched, demonstrated, and organized for countless noble causes. That's what being raised Unitarian means to me. Our ceasefire resolution is another step on that same path. I call upon you to speak up to end this siege on a tiny enclave overflowing with starving, injured, displaced, homeless, traumatized, trapped civilians. It's time to stop the massive bombing and destruction and give peace a chance. International law does not permit demolishing a housing complex with a suspected militant inside crushing all within, or razing hospitals, or bombing those forced into what was supposed to be a safe zone, or targeting food convoys, or journalists, or doctors, or ambulances, or turning back aid convoys. America's Leahy law prohibits aid to foreign military that commit human rights abuses. International law prohibits collective punishment, mass displacement, and ethnic cleansing. Yes, a terrible act of terrorism was committed by Hamas, but justice, not vengeance, must prevail. Laws that protect civilians are broken at other times and by other nations, including ours. But we live in these times, and we must raise our voices to stop these abuses done with our money and by extension in our name. Our resolution echoes worldwide ceasefire calls by the UUA, many others, and by the UN itself. Please endorse this resolution as is. I believe that acting with conscience at this time is a moral imperative and reflects our church's historic commitment to peace, justice, and to American democracy. With gratitude for all you do.
And I apologize, I didn't mention this before. We will alternate from the pro, con, and online that way. So, Elaine, I think you're the next speaker. I think, try that. I don't think that one's working.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
My name is Elaine Siegel, and I too have spent a lifetime, excuse me, of social justice activities. And I recall very specifically the protests of 1968 and where they led us. And we're there now, in substantial part because of that, because of my actions then, and because the actions of so many of others of us. I was on a campus in this city where people came out and danced when Lyndon B. Johnson stepped down from the presidential campaign. And when my friends went on up to the quadrangle and danced around singing, ding dong, the king is dead, the witch is dead. Right? And I was on the UCLA campus when a police squad came in bashing people as at Jackson State and Kent State, and people lost their lives. Anyhow, it's many years later, and we're in a terrible place in a world crisis that all of us are attempting to address. And in sorrow over the Hamas war, and over the loss of life, and over all of the atrocities that Ms. Lenz has just enumerated, a horror which I share. But in keeping too with my UU principles, I feel called upon to express some concerns with the proposed resolution. I'm not offering these as possible amendments. I've discussed that before with this group. But I'm explaining why it is that with this devastating world crisis before us, I do not see the way forward as the one that has been outlined by this group. First, as drafted, it fails to recognize the crucial role of our U.S. diplomacy in seeking a resolution of the crisis in order to bring a lasting peace This requires courageous diplomatic efforts with our allies in Europe and in the Arab world and around the world. I would begin instead. We urge U.S. federal, state, and municipal officials to support our U.S. administration and our allies internationally to take the following actions toward a just and lasting peace. And those actions are set forth as stated in the standing resolution. Second, all sides are open to ceasefire. Failing that, our administration has considered suspending military funding, and I recommend limiting the UCE proposal, or I should say I have recommended it. I'm not proposing an amendment now. To rejecting military funding and weapons for offensive measures during the ceasefire that would be put in place. This language would assume that a ceasefire is or would be in place. Israel must be protected defensively against further attack. Hamas is a terrorist organization like Hezbollah tied to Iran. Israel must maintain its Iron Dome defense system against attack. Recall that on April 13th of 2024, Iran fired hundreds of missiles and drones into Israel. International forces, including ours, intercepted virtually all. The international press is reporting now, just recently, and as you know, if you've been following the crisis, and you surely have been, the situation changes constantly, every day. And now we're hearing about loose talk in Iran about possible development of nuclear weapons. This is a horror that we must be aware of. Third, in addition to denouncing anti-Semitism and Islamophobia, as this resolution does, I submit, however it's written, that we should equally denounce hate speech, dehumanizing language, and its weaponization against people with differing views. Fourth, and vitally, we all join in the urgent calls for massive, immediate aid to Gaza's starving civilians. And as we call for halting indiscriminate destruction of civilian infrastructure, response is needed as well to its abuse, civilian infrastructure abuse by Hamas to house, conceal, supply, and enable terrorist activities, including the continuing detention of hostages. So let us join in the international community, whatever we do with this resolution, in urgently calling for a geopolitical resolution for a lasting peace. We share this vision for peace, and I thank all of you. My heartfelt thanks to all of you.
Reverend Susan, do we have anyone in the chat who wishes to speak?
No, we do not.
Then we'll go and move back to the pro microphone. Chair recognizes Steve.
Thank you. My name is Steve Sarakaku. I use he, him, his pronouns. And I'm rising to speak today because of my UU values. The proposed Article 2 changes place love at the center of our values. And my love for humanity causes me to oppose the treatment of some people as less than others. I have seen too much of that in my life. Power should not dictate who are acceptable casualties and whose safety is paramount. Everyone deserves to live in dignity and security. Hamas and the IDF are guilty of disregarding the lives of people they see as even adjacent to oppressors and terrorists. Their actions make achieving peace a more and more distant possibility. Only a permanent, total ceasefire will provide the space for humanitarian aid to allow people to begin to heal so that they may start to imagine a future that contains peace. It is said that if you want peace, you must work for justice. And we've done that. We've modeled that. I'd like us to keep doing that and be an example for other people and other faith institutions in this area.
Reverend Eiley?
There was a question online as to if there are time limits for speakers or for the conversation.
That's a good question. Thank you. We debated imposing 2-minute time limit and trying to keep this to a 15-minute conversation, but we felt that we needed to not be encumbered by that, given the importance of it. We would ask that people please be as concise as possible in their remarks and ready when they're recognized. I'm going to entertain a point of privilege for myself. I would like to speak in the con line, and therefore I need to relinquish the chair to the Vice President for the duration of this agenda item. And I'm going to recognize myself because I was... I want to acknowledge the good intentions of the... Oh, thank you. You know more about this than I. I want to acknowledge the good intentions of the work group and the members of the congregation in consideration of the work group's ceasefire resolution. I believe we are all supportive of the inherent right of people for respect, security, safety, and self-determination, and the urgent need for the safe and efficient delivery and access to humanitarian aid in the Gaza area, the immediate need for a ceasefire to stop the carnage on both sides of the border, and the engagement of rightful representatives of the Israeli and Palestinian people, their neighbors impacted by the crisis, and the international community to come together to find a solution to the immediate crisis and a way forward for a lasting peace. This is a very complex and entangled situation, and I am concerned, excuse me, that the work group's resolution goes beyond what our shared aspirations should call us to say. I do not believe it's possible to present a resolution that captures the complexity of the situation or comprehensively outlines the history of this conflict. I do not believe that calling for action by our government officials to curtail our historic commitment to the safety and defense of the Israeli people is appropriate at this moment. I am concerned about the optics of any appearance of taking sides, as I believe it can be potentially encourage anti-Semitism and Islamophobia, both globally and here in the United States. While I appreciate the Works Group commitment to its resolution, I do not share their perspective on what our UCE community should say on the Israel-Gaza conflict, as reflected in this proposed ceasefire resolution. And for those reasons, I will be voting no.
Elaine, you need to recognize Peter at the mic.
Yes, I am Peter Silverman. I am a recent member of the UCE. I am also a member of 2 synagogues, and I am voting on speaking here very much on the yes side, on the pro side for this amendment. It breaks my heart that I have to. My parents met in 1937 at a meeting of a left-wing Zionist organization planning to form a kibbutz in what was then the British Mandated Palestine. Their image was of a anarchist secular state, really. It was a very left-wing organization. And this is where my parents met, a rather important thing in my life foundation. The other thing in my life that occurred is in 1981, I had the misfortune of hearing Ariel Sharon speak at the Hebrew Institute of Riverdale. Perhaps one of the most painful experiences of my life. He was espousing a view of the world that, quite honestly, if you think of the values of this religious institution or of the others that I am affiliated with, fundamentally against it. I've only in my life met a demagogue once, and that was at that event. And I still feel tension in my body about that. And the betrayal of the values with which my parents met, in the sense in which I exist, in a very real sense. And I was fearful at the time in 1981 that the values being expressed there would lead to something like what is happening today. There is a quality of betrayal here that has occurred, and a strong and, in a sense, statement that is not necessarily balanced, is necessary, because quite honestly, Israel is a state and can protect their own interests. And in memory of my parents, in a sense, needs to state that far too far, that therefore the statement as stated feels absolutely appropriate. And it really does break my heart that I have to support it unequivocally.
Is there anyone online?
No, no one comments online.
My name is Mary Dudak. I use she, her pronouns. I am in support of the ceasefire resolution. I spoke from the pulpit when we started our humanitarian aid initiative and speak to you again from the perspective of a healthcare provider, hence my attire. Like all of you, I have been devastated by the tremendous loss of life and injuries sustained in this war. I have heard doctors and others give firsthand accounts of the conditions under which they are working to save lives, having to do surgery on someone without sufficient anesthesia or pain medications, not having sterile equipment to use, which then results in rampant infections, not having a functioning hospital or clean water even. Lack of food and nutrition and diarrheal illnesses from poor sanitary conditions makes all of this even worse. These heroic efforts are being done while people are also fearing that they themselves will be bombed or shot. The first thing we do in any trauma is to stop the bleeding. That's what a ceasefire means to me and all healthcare providers. We must have the courage to add our voice to the calls for an immediate, permanent ceasefire. It is impossible to do any meaningful work while civilians are in an active war zone. Thank you.
The working group would like to thank all of you who have donated to humanitarian aid. We hope that that continues. However, that aid cannot be effectively and fully committed unless we have a ceasefire. I move the question.
Second. Carla, our current quorum is 129.
I think, thanks, Tom. Just procedurally, I don't think we want to vote on moving the question. It looks like everyone has spoken. Unless there's anyone else who'd like to speak, we can already go ahead and move to a vote. Is that okay with the group? Yes.
I call for the vote. All in favor? No. I vote no.
Adam, could you put the amended resolution up, please, on the screen?
Yes, this is a vote for the resolution itself.
You can put your hands down. Elaine, you can call for all those opposed.
Yes, and the tally is? Oh, sorry. Okay. So we're
That's
looking for
fine.
the nays?
Nay
Well,
votes,
The two of you can vote.
abstentions.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're asking for the no votes. All voting no, please hold up your cards.
Carla, we have 102 in favor, 13 opposed, and 1 abstention.
Excuse me? Yep. Anyone who's abstaining, please raise your voting card.
Please hold your cards up.
Yep. Thank you.
So 5 abstentions in person and online.
So we needed 86 affirmative votes for it to pass, and I heard we had affirmative votes.
102 in favor.
102. Motion passes. Congratulations on that work. Thank you very much. Now that we're done with that agenda item, I'm going to resume the chair. And we are close to the end. Those were the words you were waiting to hear. Normally, we would have the Unitarian Universalist Association General Assembly preview, but in light of the hour, I'm going to suggest, unless there is a motion made otherwise, that we allow the Denominational Affairs team to share information about that via the newsletter and other outlets. Okay, so I believe we have completed all the business of this meeting. I appreciate your patience. All those, before we go, I'm waiting. Someone's coming towards me. Make sure we haven't.
So Reverend Eileen is walking out the door to go to Meadville Lombard's graduation. She's the chaplain for the students there. But the two of us just want to say thank you. I know this was hard, and this is not the end of the conversation, right? Like, the world doesn't stop because we made a vote, and that I really appreciate how all of you listened to each other and applauded each other even when it was not your position. And so I just want you to own that, right? Like, you did a good job, and we'll keep being in conversation. But Reverend Eileen and I are so grateful that you're interested in being in relationship with each other and in community. So I just want you all to know, well done today.
Thank you, Reverend Susan. I'll then entertain a motion to adjourn. Okay, I think that was a resounding majority, if not a unanimous vote. Thank you all. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Return your voting cards. Be environmentally friendly and return your voting cards to the back table as you head out.
Hey, dude, I just want to give you a hug.